In 1938, a 25-year-old microbiologist named Masanobu Fukuoka stood on a hill overlooking a valley in Japan and experienced a flash of insight that would challenge the foundation of modern civilization. He realized that nature was perfect as it was, and that human interference, no matter how well-intentioned, often created more problems than it solved. This realization led him to abandon a promising career and move into a primitive hut to practice what he called natural farming, or do-nothing farmings. To prove his philosophy was not just a beautiful dream, but a superior reality, he embarked on a 25-year experiment that would eventually produce yields matching or exceeding Japan's most energy-intensive farms. If you want to achieve a bumper harvest of grain and vegetables by working with the earth rather than against it, you must begin by mastering his precisely timed annual cycle. To get a high-yielding crop of rice and winter grain without plowing or chemicals, you must follow a schedule that mimics the natural flow of the seasons. In early October, before the current rice crop is harvested, you broadcast white clover seeds and the seeds of winter grains, such as rye or barley, directly into the standing rice. These seeds will sprout and grow an inch or two by the time you are ready to harvest the rice. During the harvest in early November, you will trample these young sprouts with your feet, but they are resilient and will recover almost immediately. Once the rice is threshed, you must return all the straw to the field, scattering it unevenly rather than laying it in neat rows. This straw is your most vital resource. It suppresses weeds, retains moisture, and provides the only fertilizer the soil will ever need. The secret weapon of this do-nothing revolution is the clay pellet, or seed ball, which protects your seeds from the environment while they wait for the perfect moment to germinate. To grow rice, you must encase the seeds in clay between mid-November and mid-December and broadcast them among the young winter grain plants. You can make these pellets by spreading unhulled rice seeds on a flat pan and shaking them in a circular motion, dusting them with powdered clay and a fine mist of water until small balls form. Alternatively, you can soak the seeds, mix them with moist clay, and push the mixture through a wire screen to create small clods that you roll into half-inch pellets. By late April, you should check the germination of these seeds and broadcast more pellets if necessary. In May, you harvest the winter grain and scatter its straw over the field as well. Finally, in June, you allow water to stand in the field for 7 to 10 days. This short flooding period weakens the clover and weeds just enough to allow the rice to sprout up through the straw mulch. This system succeeds because it is based on 4 core principles of negation that debunk the myths of modern agriculture. The first principle is no tillage, which rejects the plow. Fukuoka observed that the soil cultivates itself through the tireless work of plant roots, earthworms, and microorganisms. Plowing is a war of annihilation that stirs up dormant weed seeds and destroys the soil's natural structure. The second is no chemical fertilizer, as the earth increases in fertility when organic remains are left to decompose naturally. Using straw and clover as green manure enriches the humus layer, which Fukuoka proved by increasing his topsoil's depth by 4 inches in 20 years. The third principle is no weeding by tillage or herbicides. By managing the timing of your planting and maintaining a clover cover, you control weeds rather than trying to eliminate them, as weeds themselves play a vital role in balancing the biological community. The fourth is no dependence on chemicals, as pests and diseases only become unmanageable in an unnatural environment of weak plants and missing predators. Fukuoka used the presence of spiders in his fields as a key indicator of his ecosystem's health. The results of this method are a hard business case for sustainability. Fukuoka was able to produce 1,300 pounds of grain per quarter acre, using no machines and no commercial inputs. His rice plants were often smaller and sturdier than his neighbors, but they bore 200 to 300 grains per head. Beyond grain, you can grow vegetables in a semi-wild manner by simply tossing seeds into wasteland or orchard spaces. The trick is timing. Broadcast spring vegetables as winter weeds die back, and fall vegetables when summer grasses fade. By cutting the existing weeds and laying them over your seeds as mulch, you provide a head start for your crops, which will eventually thrive in symbiosis with the natural flora. In his orchards, Fukuoka even abandoned the practice of pruning, realizing that when a tree is allowed to follow its natural form from the start, it never requires human correction. Pruning is merely a solution to the wounds caused by previous interference. The conflict between Fukuoka and the agricultural establishment was not merely over techniques. It was a battle against the money-sucking octopus economy. He argued that modern agriculture congratulates itself for becoming fat by eating its own legs, referring to how we deplete foundational resources for short-term profit. He noted that modern rice production has become a deduction rather than a production, now requiring 2 calories of energy input for every 1 calorie of food produced, whereas 50 years ago it only required half a calorie of input. He criticized the discriminating knowledge of scientists who divide nature into tiny pieces, missing the whole reality. To Fukuoka, an object seen in isolation from the rest of nature is not the real thing, and specialists who ignore the interconnectedness of life are like fools stomping on their own roof tiles, only to rejoice when they later mend the leaks. Critics often viewed his do-nothing method as an invitation to laziness, but Fukuoka experienced a massive failure early on that proved otherwise. When he first returned to his father's farm and abandoned the citrus trees to nature without supervision, over 200 trees died. This was the low point of his journey, teaching him that doing nothing does not mean being irresponsible. It means active non-interference and deep observation. It requires the farmer to gain wisdom about the earth rather than just performing agricultural labor. He eventually proved his methods were universally applicable, and his seed ball technique is now being used to restore arid lands in Africa and India, where traditional irrigation has failed due to salinization. He famously stated that rain doesn't only fall from the sky, it also falls up from below, because healthy vegetation creates the humidity necessary for rainfall. In his later years, Fukuoka advocated for an urban natural farm revolution to replace resource-intensive lawns with productive gardens of fruit trees, clover, and daikon. He saw this as a way to restore food security and reconnect communities with the essence of life. He envisioned a future where natural culture replaces our reliance on the failing machines of industrialism. His legacy is a survival imperative in an age where global agriculture consumes 70% of our fresh water and degrades soil far faster than it can be regenerated. He believed that if every family were given just a quarter acre of land and practiced natural farming, it would be more than enough to support them, creating a truly happy and pleasant society. The emotional finale of Fukuoka's message is a call to return to the realities of nature for a peaceful existence. He saw farming not just as a means of producing food, but as a spiritual path toward the cultivation and perfection of human beings. He believed that when the environment is in balance, religion, science, and philosophy will also come into balance. His revolution was never about a single straw, but about the profound wisdom of knowing when to act and, more importantly, when to step aside. In an age of planetary crisis, this intellectual superiority through simplicity may be our best hope to feed the world without destroying the very ground we stand upon. It is a way to stop being a slave to circumstances and to find genuine truth, beauty, and pleasure in the world as it was meant to be. By trusting in nature's inherent capacity for healing and abundance, we can transform even the most degraded landscapes back into a paradise,